Good evening. It's 4 weeks to Christmas, so it's time to crack open the Raconteurs News Christmas intro. Good evening. It's 4 weeks to Christmas, so it's time to crack open. It's 7 p.m. and it's Tuesday night. I got my laptop phone and I feel alright. I got a few joints to roll and my munch is made. I got my headphones on and I'm closing the door, don't disturb me. It's time to stand up tall and say some things about the shitty world we're living in. Boys, it Raconteurs News. I say raconteurs, raconteurs, say raconteurs, raconteurs. I say raconteurs news, raconteurs news, raconteurs news, raconteurs news, raconteurs news. Oh yeah. And good evening, welcome to Raconteurs News. It's Tuesday night, it's the 27th of November 2018, and it's all crazy still. We're still crazy, that's why we're still here. So we're not going to dwell on the fact that it's crazy. Listen, tonight we've not got any guests, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be asking you, the audience, to participate. Somebody suggested yesterday that we do a Q&A session in the chat room yesterday, so we're up for that. If anyone wants to post a question in the chat room, we'll try and address it in either myself or Webby, most probably Webby if it's money related. Yeah, so that seems like a good idea. We've got a few other things to talk about as well, but first I need to introduce my co-host, my friend, Dobry wieczór, tovarищ Webster, my leftist friend.
Yeah, that was amazing. That I've never been called a leftist before. That was ace. Yeah, great day. Went to the cinema today with my daughter to watch. I don't know, the latest Filthy Beasts film, Grindelwald or something like that. But I had a bit of a sick bug while I was in there, so I had to hurriedly, with a gobful, get to the toilets quickly, where I spent about 5 minutes, and then I felt great afterwards.
Excellent. Well, as long as you're feeling all right tonight, if you need to rush off, you're going to have to give me some sort of notice. Rush off and puke up. So the popcorn probably was a bit of a waste of money then in the cinema if it just came up.
No, it weren't for me. It was for our Nick. Like, I didn't have anything. That's what I mean. It was just kept getting those waves of sick, and then I thought I'm just going to have to go and just be sick because I always feel better afterwards.
You probably, next time you go to cinema, you probably want to ask for an inclined seat, and you probably won't be you won't be sick. How was the film anyway?
Yeah, it's good. It's obviously, it leaves you waiting now for the next film, which is what they're good at, isn't it? With Hollywood. But yeah, it was, it was 2 hours worth spending in good company as well. So,
the time with your daughter, that's the most precious thing in it. So it don't matter whether the film were crap and it were a rubbish. It's the time that's the valuable thing. So you've had a good day. Anything? Listen, there's a couple of little things that we want to touch on tonight. I don't know whether to touch on it now or touch on it later. But listen, this morning I accidentally put my local BBC News on, and the top story was about. In fact, I found it on online, so I can look at it. Here it is. It's a book that has been released for children, and it's going into schools. And it's a digital book, and it's called Oh But Why Mum, and it was written in the aftermath of the Manchester Arena attack, which killed 22 people, including 6 from Yorkshire. It's been written by a group called Huddersfield Circle of Sisters, and the group hope the book will help parents and teachers with difficult conversations. So we've got to a point now where we are making books, digital books, so these can be accessed at home, not just at school. There's probably a million ways that these kids can get hold of this stuff, and it's teaching them about terrorism. And what's your thoughts? I mean, for me, that was shocking. But when I did a search on it earlier on, I found that there's lots of different books for children that address terrorism.
Again, there obviously is no agenda behind any of this, Jason, but I remember 3 years ago seeing that Germany, the education system in Germany, was putting pamphlets out to encourage parents to, like, a father to show his daughter the pleasures of a clitoris. These were aimed at 5-year-old children. They were encouraging parents to do this. Now, I don't get it. I don't get what that has to do with bringing a child up. What are we allowing? Why are we even debating things like this that is possibly being taught to our children? I saw a lady over in America. She was at a school governors type meeting, and the sex education that they were doing there, so, you know, like Johnny's two dads and all that kind of stuff, they were showing and talking about anal sex, showing how to put condoms onto cucumbers. These were 5, 6, 7-year-old children, and there's something not right about that. There's got to be something damaging to children at that mental age. You don't understand what they're actually seeing. They can't understand it because those things aren't meant to come out until puberty, until you start becoming, you know, your body tells you when that's happening. But with everything that we face, from things in the air, in the food, in the water, from the television, from all this programming that we seem to have, we just blindly accept it. It's as if there's a part of it's part of the population have just switched off that reaction. You know, it's almost getting to the point where, you know, a psychopath or a sociopath can actually see a family member killed and have no emotion about that whatsoever. And that seemingly is what we've got as a blanket through the population. There's always cognitive dissonance. And again, we always get back to the point, if it's not affecting your life, you're going to just carry on in your bubble.
But these sort of issues do affect a lot of people's lives. I mean, I'm sure there's, I know there's examples of people that have pulled the kids out of school or didn't want the kids to be taught in certain lessons, and those parents have been victimised for that. I think there was one where there was a woman that pulled out. Said that she didn't want a kid doing some transgender thing, and then she went to a meeting, and one of the teachers, I can't actually remember the story.
She was excluded, wasn't she, from the grounds? She
got, one of the teachers had got a T-shirt on saying either accept it or shut up, you know, which she thought that was aimed at her. I'm sure it was in Ireland or somewhere. I can't remember. If someone finds it, then post it in the chat room, which an interesting article. But this is where we're going, and it is. I'd say it's dangerous, but it's only dangerous if we allow it to be dangerous. You know, we should teach as kids that they should speak their own truth and be real, be reality. Don't try and, you know, but social media has made it so that everybody's got to have this certain image about themselves, and so only certain, you know, you're not going to post on Facebook, oh dear, I'm a rape doggy and I've done this and I've done that and I'm a rape dickhead, unless you're really, really craving attention.
I've seen people post that.
Well, yeah, okay, fair enough. But you know, there's so many pressures on kids these days When they go to school, it should be a place where they go learning. It should be a place where they go and sit outside on a sunny day on grass, you know, and they all make daisies and, you know, make daisy chains and pick things. I know this is idealistic, but that's really what childhood is all about. And a lot of these kids don't get that at home because the parents are too busy with their lives and trying to keep a roof above these kids' head and keeping up to date with all the stuff that these kids are demanding. But it's everything's sort of like blanded and you know, I mean, can you imagine? I remember our teacher used to say on a warm day. This were in secondary school, not secondary school. What's that one? Primary school. I were in a class where we had two different sets of years in the same class, so they were mixed in, third and fourth years. And you know, sometimes a teacher would say, "God, it's a lovely day. We'll go and do this outside." We wouldn't be able to do that now. There'd be no way, because there'd be first kid that got stung by a bee. They'd be shitting the sense that they're going to get a lawsuit, and this is where we've gone, and we've allowed it to happen. Yeah. I don't know what the solution is, but you know, the problems are really clear to see if you're looking.
The education system's been given too much power. They think they've got authority to tell you how to raise your children, and now they're dabbling into the parts of things like transgenderism and sexuality. The school just has, in my opinion, the school has no right to even be talking to children about sexuality. That's for the parents to deal with. That's something that you deal with in your home. When I was going to school, I hated school, but the things that my mum said to me was the 3 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic. That's what the education system's meant to do. I'm meant to be able to understand all that in order for me to be able to learn and research myself and make critically think about things, not be taught how to think, or what to think, I should say. Instead of teaching the kids how to think about holding those two ideas and not having a belief in either one, so that you can actually weigh the substance of both ideas. If you've got a belief in one of the ideas, then you're already on a back foot, because you're already not going to accept the new idea because you've got a belief. So you've got to somehow soften your beliefs, because I've had to unlearn everything that I was ever taught in regards to history, in regard to banking, and we're taught to play a part within a system, and that's what we do. We do it really well, and we even manage to govern each other into, you know, towing the party line. And look at us now, we're all arguing about all different things, which is exactly what they want. We've looking like we've been sold down the river with Brexit. It's given now more and more credence for people who want a second referendum. There's no reason behind this. The panic about leaving Europe, to me, is just, I don't get it. No, exactly, I don't get it. I
don't think there is a panic. I think the panic's all manufactured. It's all on news. It's all these talking heads, you know, these wankers that have got a vested interest, whether they're MPs or whether the fact that they're on Sky News, that, you know, there's bound to be some sort of wanker, aren't there?
But people are buying it. People are buying those wankers. Do you know what I mean?
Are they, though? We're being told by the very same wankers that are putting this wank shit out that people, you know, the Sky News poll says that 70% of people.
Have a look at the LBC, the callers on the chat. Just look at the remarks that people are putting in. There are people that actually believe what these people are saying.
Yeah, I don't, but they're the ones that shout the loudest. You know, the ones that say, "Look, we've had a vote." Everyone else is all the Ramonas are just going, "Oh, but we're going to leave the best thing. We didn't know what we were voting for. If you didn't know what you were voting for, why did you vote Remain then? Because obviously you didn't know what you were voting for. You'd have voted Leave, obviously, because now you're complaining that you didn't know what you were voting for. So obviously, by definition, you now would have voted the other way. So shut the fuck up. Let's just get out right? But you see, they shout the loudest because they're the squealers, and they're the ones that have got the most to lose. They're the ones that are in these jobs where they might have a middle management job in a company, and the people who are running the company are Remainers, and they spread it about that, well, once after Brexit, we're probably going to have to shut this down. And it's a load of bollocks, but it's there. But so they're the ones screaming, but the people that voted to leave, the people, they're just... Oh, look, we've fucking already had this vote. We don't need it. We've already had it. That's it. End of story. There is no remit. There's no need for another vote on Brexit. It should be a moot point. We should have a prime minister that can say, actually, look, this is what the people want, and this is what the people are going to get. Well, right? If the bellends that are moaning about us we'll not be able to free trade. I won't be able to get me maid from Czechoslovakia won't be able to come over and clean my house at like half the amount of money that I'd have to pay in English. These are the type of people that are wanting to remain in the EU. That's who they are, and they've got their own demographic. It's just that we outnumber them. The ordinary people outnumber them, and if we were all sort of like gathered in the same, with the same goal, let's just Brexit and forget everything else, forget all other stuff that we disagree on, then, perhaps we'll get something done. But it's people's egos is
they're pulling everything out their arse, Jason. I mean, you've got record numbers of dead people still voting as well. You've got, look at what happened with America when they were having all the illegal immigrants. They were getting all free stuff and being told that they could vote. Well, you're going to vote for the party that's giving you all the free stuff. And when that demographic changes, unfortunately, we have got people in this country that at least can still think that if we give all our power to a faceless European entity, that we'll never get any redress at all. There's no remedy for us because it's all business. They're saying now we won't be able to go to the European Court of Human Rights. We don't need it. We've got everything that we need in this land, but we are directed into civil. We're always directed into civil, because if we get into common law, if we get into equity chancery, they've lost. They will lose, because they'll happily put us into civil, into public, where they can't hear anything, because that won't be allowed. Because with the information that people are coming forward with now, the banking system would go like that. It just overnight, if it just won into chancery. But as the numbers start to pick up now, there's so many people that have, I'm speaking to people, I'm learning stuff off that I would never even thought of going down some of the rabbit holes. But not necessarily one rabbit hole is better than another rabbit hole, but when you go down both and you bring both pieces of evidence together, that's just doubled what evidence you've got. Then another rabbit hole will bring another piece and another piece, and you've got several thousands people. Who knows how many people now are looking at this stuff and being challenging in courts, because until people started going to these courts and finding out that you can't be heard and how it isn't our remedy, nobody knew this stuff. Because I certainly went into a court thinking, if I can show that I have this much of understanding of what I'm talking about, then they'll be impartial and they'll hear. That's not what it's about. The weirdest thing about a county court hearing is that you can't be heard. That's how this justice system works. Unfortunately, we've now got common law courts that are popping up all over the country, Scotland and Wales and Ireland as well, and they've already got convictions. Juries have already heard evidence, already found guilty, but we can't enforce it. And until we get to a point of numbers, it could come back to the old. You get a volunteer police force in your own local town, and until you can start generating a pay format, and these people are instructed in the ways to protect life and property. That's it. I don't want you walking around giving parking tickets out. I want you to protect life and property. That's what you're meant to do. You're not meant to collect money for other people, for companies, defrauding a trust that you don't even know you've got. You don't even know how to access it. But these companies know how to access it because this is where they take all your equity.
Interesting. Listen, let's have a look in the chat room, shall we? See what we've got. I know we've got Super Leads in there, and he asked a question earlier on: why would anybody want to put a condom on a cucumber? I'd perhaps suggest you try your imagination there, Leeds. I'm sure. I'm sure there's many people of both genders, whatever. Oh, what my idea? Well, by the way, what you identifying as today, Webby, comrade?
No, I'm still a bloke. Not changed. Same as yesterday.
Are you a left-wing communist?
Well, see, I don't understand why I was called a leftist. I really don't understand what my views on being leftist is, other than saying that something's a bit iffy around Tommy Robinson. There's something not right. I feel that there's something not right around that setup. If that makes me a leftist because I'm cautionary, but you know, I'm cautionary about Theresa May, Jeremy Corbyn, UKIP, especially now Tommy Robinson teaming up. It seems too convenient that this man has got help where others couldn't. You know, there's no anybody. Is Melanie Shaw being helped by an Israeli think tank that's paying for all her legal fees? I don't think so. But it seems to be that, you know, I couldn't say whether, as in being forthright and wanting to do it, but that even if that's not the case, they've seen that they can use him potentially to sway quite a lot of people, because there are a lot of people who stop thinking at the fact that he's showing the issue of Asian grooming gangs, which there is an issue. You know, there's no two ways about it. But it's not just Asian grooming gangs. But he's got. We were talking about demographics. You've got a demographic that will follow Tommy Robinson, and I can't. As we were talking about off air, group identity. I don't identify with groups. I like to think for myself. I like to make my own decisions, and I like to come to those decisions. Don't get me wrong, I may make a decision and think, oh shit, that was not the right thing to do. Or somebody may come along and go, hey, don't do that, do it like this. And I'll say, well, why? And they'll explain it to me. And if that's better, or it feels better, then you go with that. It's not about thinking people know everything. It's about getting an understanding of where you stand within this, and then not looking to somebody to save you, because you're just giving all your power away. I know it's not easy. It is difficult. It is a big system, but you know, it won't take that much to change the system. The only time that anything has ever changed in this world has been when small groups of people have changed it, not large groups. Large groups of people don't necessarily change it, but small groups can. You've seen it throughout history. Don't get me wrong, the big groups eventually get that big, they can just do everything. The Roman Empire, Persian Empire, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, you've got to get into that position. I think people give far too much power away and don't believe in themselves as much. And I'm as guilty as anybody for that. 10 years ago, standing in a courtroom, shaking like a shitting dog, hoping that somebody's going to help me. Nobody helped me. It's about talking to people and getting people to help each other. We patrol each other, political correctness and all. Oh, you can't say that. We do all that to each other. But when I said, hey, your gas is free, I was called names. And people have got to go and research this for themselves, because they're running off with everything.
You see, the thing is, with Tommy Robinson, he's got this hook. What he's done is he's reached out, and he's actually succeeded in bringing together people who felt disenfranchised and probably had nowhere to go and vent their spleen, nowhere to go and complain about it, but then what's happened is, and listen, I'm not a Tommy Robinson fan. I'm not. I'm somebody I'm not I'm call me a journalist. I'm just a bloke who does a radio show with an opinion. A radio show's not on radio very much anymore, so it's probably just a YouTube show. But you know, I don't. He has managed to mobilize a whole group of people that before felt disenfranchised. If you were associated with it, there's more of a sense of, from what I get from the people that I've met, that you get more of, you get these people empower themselves by being part of something bigger than what they perceive they are, and you can only, I don't know whether Tommy Robinson's engineered it. Clearly he hasn't. Somebody's been there getting him on TV and doing all this stuff, and it is, I agree with you, it's for a reason. It's for a reason, but it was a very, very easy demographic to pick up. You know, the shaven-headed England supporter away on holiday, pink, sunburnt, arse hanging out. You know, this sort of, and I know that's stereotyping, but this is what we're talking about. And so he's empowered, and he's mobilised these people. And whoever's done it, whoever's created this, has been really intelligent.
Yeah, and like I said, he's come along at a time where people, like you say, haven't got anywhere to look, don't know what to do, know there's something wrong. See Tommy Robinson going on television and saying what they think, then yeah, I get it. But to get a bigger understanding, to see him with, you know, saying that he's a Zionist, to wearing an IDF T-shirt, to being pictured on a tank on the Israeli border, well, border with Gaza, they've never even put a border up, but he stood on a tank with an M16, and then he gets sent to jail, and a think tank from the US pay all his legal fees. That sounds to me like somebody's looking after him, or at least grooming him, for want of a better way of putting it. There's some, if he's not fully into this and he's bought into it, you know, I mean, 900 grand house, nice, but it's amazing that you can come from where he's come from and do what he's done, which has been basically full time. And if it's just donations he's been living off, you know, he's certainly made himself a nice little nest egg. Whose nest has he feathered? It only seems to be his own, but he's using other people, and it's kind of a double-edged sword, because it is an issue that does need addressing, but to use that one issue, and again, even to be pictured holding a photograph of Melanie Shaw, but not even talk about Melanie Shaw or what her background story is. He's pictured with holding it though, because that was in the news at the minute. We to be fair, nobody seems to know. Even people, I've spoken to people, not only Dave, but I've spoken to other people who said they've been in the inner circle of Tommy Robinson, and they don't even know. They can't even tell me what's going on with the situation that's there. You get locked out at a certain part, and then he'll show up and he'll do his chat and his speech, and then off he goes. Well, we've had loads of people do that through the centuries, you know, and they all talk a good fight. It's just we never get anybody who actually follows through on what they're saying. One or two MPs are now starting to put their heads above the parapet. There's Gemma Doherty over in Ireland. She's got a YouTube channel now going, and she's talking about what's going on over there. You know, the Irish girls and guys over there, they know the crack. They were way ahead of us when I started to look into this stuff 10 years ago. I got a lot of information coming from over there because they were the test bed for what they want to do with this. The 2008 property collapse, when the mortgages went, I still had a mortgage at the time, and my mortgage went from £412 a month to £187 a month. So the mortgage crash was brilliant for me. It saved me £200-300. But that's still not, it's, you know, just because that's made it good for me, it doesn't say that it's right. And it's time that people did the right thing, not whether it's good for them or bad for them, but is it right? And, you know, people are going to get put into a position where they'll either have to do the right thing or the wrong thing. And, you know, we've been in those positions. I've made wrong decisions and I've made right decisions. Sometimes you don't know what's what, because you think you made the right decision and it goes all tits up and everything falls apart, and then something new and better comes in behind that. Because if you're trying to hold on to everything like I did 10 years ago, trying to hold on to everything, nothing new can come into your life. You're just going to hold on to everything, and that's including all the pain and everything. It's about forgiveness of yourself for all the shit that you know you've done, and forgiving what other people have done to you because they're as fucked up as what you are.
Yeah, good point. Let's have a look in this chat room anyway. Hello to everybody in the chat room. Super Leaders in there, Society of the Spectacle, Kendo Taylor, Harry Cookie Monster. Hi, Harry. I had listened to your show from last night. I listened the first 10 minutes as Dinny suggested that I do. And yeah, I understand, and I sort of semi-agree with what you were saying. But it's just we obviously have different opinions on. I just, for me, I just like to get everybody's opinion rather than just. And listen, if I can interview some far right people, if I can interview somebody who says he's a super space monster, right, and he tell me a book, you know, he's got his book and everything, and then I think interviewing far right people is well, in fact, I'm going to call him far right. He said he wouldn't describe himself as far right, but he described me as a lefty, so I'll call him far right. Yeah, listen. We want just to include everybody here at Raconteurs News. We don't want to be all things to all people. We obviously have our own opinions, and I think Dinny also put a point in that about that I should have asked a certain question that I've asked tonight. I should have asked it last night, and perhaps I should have. But I think that it was a little bit crowded, and so I didn't really get much time to do that sort of thing. And I thought Paul was doing well anyway, trying to pin him down on certain things. So sorry about that. And so if anybody got get a question in the chat room, then just type it in there. If you want new beings in there as well, how you doing? And straight behind her is Super Leads, so that makes sense. Super Leads is like if you're new to Raconteurs News and new to the chat room, don't be frightened away by Super Leads, but he is like a dog with two dicks. So we sort of we love him, really, don't we? One of our first regular listeners, good old Super Leads, got in touch with us. Oh, and Johnny Jamshovel as well. Hello, Johnny Jamshovel. Thank you very much for the write-ups. It's brilliant, mate. And keep them coming. So, what? We're half an hour in, mate. We've covered. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to mention. I'd like to get a copy of this book. This book that initially started that little thing that we were talking about then off. Oh, but why, Mum? I'd like to have a read at that and see what it does, because what it is doing, it's popping a narrative in children's heads at a very, very early stage. It'd be interesting to see whether there is a narrative, whether it's the official story that they're pushing.
What age group's it aimed at, Jason?
Well, let me have a. I don't quite know. Let me just have a look. I'll see if I can. It's only a really little. It explains terror attacks to children. Now, the children in the picture look like they're either infant school age or very early primary school age. They're reading it on a tablet. So I think they're really quite young, and they do like to do that, don't they? They like to get them young, and then they insert a narrative into the mind. And it's interesting how these things, when you're growing up, and I always remember there's certain things that I always remember that my dad said to me or somebody said to me, and I've always remembered it. and I've generally stuck by it and thought that it were real, you know, throughout my life. And then sometimes you find out, you know, things aren't real, like, you know, seeing too close to telly won't make you need glasses, even though I've got glasses on, but these are reading glasses. And so, you know, there are these things when you've got a child that they're so malleable and that their brain is so, it's like a sponge, it'll take in stuff, and that once that stuff's in there, it's really difficult to get it out.
Yeah, well, that's why I wondered about the age, because they want the kids now. They're trying to get them younger and younger. You know, they're trying to get them in preschool for 2, something like that nowadays. And if you've got an education system that has got 3 years, because by the age of 5, your psychological basis, your foundations for who you are basically set. You know, everything else then you learn. You start to learn, but if you can get access to a 2-year-old, and for 3 years you can subtly put messages into this child, that will eventually grow, because they can only go to those references for when they want to ask questions. So they're not taught how to think. I mean, if you look at some of the math stuff that are coming over from America with the correction core, the simple addition and take away has been now, you know, you're taking up virtually half of an A4 piece of paper to do the equation, and it's a simple sum. You know, you could actually just do it in your head without even thinking, but they are taught to do it a certain way that just seems to complicate things. And for me, that is not teaching a child anything. How can they work out an equation when they need to sit down and get a piece of paper and do it all like that to get an answer that there's a miles easier way to do? I was always taught that if there's an easy way to do it without cutting corners or anything like that, do it the simplest and easiest way. Why do you want to make work for yourself? With the education system, it's not a nation of thinkers that they're aiming at. They want a nation of workers, drones, do as they're told, can operate machinery, can stack shelves. And that is until they've decided that they've had enough of the mass majority of us, because you know, it's not rocket science to go and read what they write about, which is Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, depopulation program, to look at history, eugenics, all this kind of stuff. It's been going around for a long, long time. So, you know, you get to a point where if you can't see that there's a pattern forming, then I don't know what you need when you've got everything there. Just get me.
Haha. Yeah, I'm sorry, I just left.
I know.
I just wanted to. I thought you were going to carry on for a bit longer. I thought I had more time. I went in to get some Coke and a bottle of vodka. So I'm just going to have a little bit wee dram, as they say, up in Bonnie, Scotland, or even in Ireland as well. I think Dinny will probably be able to tell us whether that's true or not. Lots of rumours about Ireland. Some of them, believe me, I've embarrassed myself asking about leprechauns before, so I know the full thing. Oh, we've got I'm looking in chat room again. Richard Kinsett's in there as well. Esther C from Boots Ticks 3. Super Leeds is talking about colloidal silver. Would you do it? I've got some in my cupboard, actually. I've not used it in a long time. Johnny Jam Shovel Honey is a natural antiseptic. Good one, Tony. I think they've got their own show going on in the chat room, because they're not talking about anything that we're talking about, and they just sort of got their own show going. So,
I know, I've seen it.
It's good to see Andy in there as well, Andy. It's good to see you, mate. I've not spoke to you for a while, so if you want to catch up or at any point, just drop us a buzz and we'll have a bit of a check up. We'll check you up from the neck up. Oh, Andy, yeah, he's in the chat room as well, so he can't keep away. What we were going to talk about?
You said you had a couple of things that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, there is. There was a couple of things that I wanted to talk about, and I seem to have. Listen, this is for everybody. This is what I work from. This is my notes from like sort of shows that we do. There were one time I was pretty bored, and I thought to myself, because I'd seen that we had that guy on. Remember that Jason? What's his face? Los Artis or something that we had. Yeah, and he's online and he's on Facebook and he's selling his paintings. And I thought, oh, what a great way for me to make a bit of money. I'll sell my paintings. So I thought, right, let's see if I can draw first before we sort of do some artist stuff. So, wife's coming for vodka. Thank you. And so I tried to draw the Scream, the famous Scream one, and that's as far as I got. I don't know if you can see that. There it is. That's as far as I got on the Scream. So I don't think that avenue of revenue is going to be open to me.
Yeah, I don't think Jason's going to be worried about the competition.
No, I don't think he is either, and neither am I. I mean, I'm not worried about our competition. Right, okay. Blah blah blah. Where are we? 20 minutes before the hour time. Let's see. Anybody woken up and decided and remembered that there's a show going on here? Oh right. Airy Cookie Monster will be a vote of no confidence in May.
So again.
Do you think, Harry Cookie Monster has asked, do you think there'll be a vote of no confidence in Theresa May? How's this, what's your take on this? How's this working out for you, Webby? Because for me, it seems that it's like everything the Tories have done since, it seems to be suicide politics. But they always seem to hang on and hang on and hang on. How do you see that going? You think there's going to be a vote no confidence? Do you think there's going to be a leadership contest? And do you think inevitably, if that happens, there's going to be a general election as well? So, what's your thoughts on that?
I reckon that if they do this live TV debate, what they're talking about between Corbyn and May, if they do that, I think it'll probably be the final nail in her coffin. But it's so, because the two parties are so closely linked with each other, it doesn't matter what we argue about, what Labour argue about the Tories and vice versa. It's what they all agree upon, what people need to look at. And what they agree upon is virtually everything. The factor is now they've got an argument because Theresa May is so-called giving us Brexit. Which brings up about fishing rights because of the border in Northern Ireland. So they've got this hard, soft border type thing that they don't want in Northern Ireland. They don't know what to do with that. Then the fishing around these islands, it should be down to us. But there's reports saying that the EU have got the rights over all this, and especially with this, I forget what they call it now, but the EU can hold us. If anything that we do harms the EU can hold us in this back channel or something. Was it? I can't remember what the terminology was now off the top of my head. But it just seems like it's lip service to me, Jason. It would be the same if Jeremy Corbyn was in. We'd have a different deal, or we'd have Brexit, but we would still not be talking about issuing our own credit from our own treasury. We're not even on those type of things. And if we don't get control of that money supply, you what, mate?
Sorry, I don't know if you one I couldn't hear you then, Webby. I don't know if it were me or whether it were you.
I've not touched out this end. I forgot what I was saying then.
Oh no. We were talking about Theresa May and Brexit and Jeremy Corbyn. And what if he got into power? What do you think?
That was it. There would be changes because you can't just carry on being the same, because they've got to show, like, they've got to give lip service to change. I mean, look at Barack Obama. He campaigned on the real change bit. Well, he did really change a lot, but he made it a hell of a lot worse. But that's what these campaigns do. They get in telling a load of bullshit and lies because they have that parliamentary privilege to do that, can't be prosecuted, can't be held to account for it. And then we get the shitty end of the stick and they get a golden handshake and off to wherever it is they go to pasture. If again, people have got to stop going down there waving flags and all this kind of stuff. Fuel costs. I mean, we've had this debate with Andy. I remember doing taxis back in '99, somewhere like that, and I was tanking like 4 or 5 cars up at the end of my shift because they were going to run out of fuel that night. There's garages closing everywhere. That was at 95 pence a litre. They barricaded Stanlow fuel station at 95 pence a litre. We're now at £1.20, £1.30 a litre. These people know that we won't do anything about it. I mean, where's all the protesters down in London about the fuel cost? We've got bigger fish to fry than fuel, but nothing happens like that. They've got the British public in just a numb state. Unless something threatens the physical family or the home or anything like that, people won't do anything. They're constantly trained to stay under that radar until something changes about that. I can't see what changes you want, because it doesn't matter who you put in number 10, you're not going to get the change that you want. You're not going to see people off the streets, 320,000 or so people. 1 in 200 is now homeless in this country. That it's not a third world country yet, but it's getting there. It could be stopped so easily, Jason. That's my biggest bugbear about this. We could change it so easily. It's just nobody knows what direction to go in to change it. But you've got to get the numbers first, and slowly but surely they are growing. People are debating whether there's a mass awakening going on, because there's people who've been in this for a long time, and they say there's no mass awakening. I can't see it. There's still people well asleep, and there is. But 10 years ago, this is a mass awakening in comparison to 10 years ago. It was an absolute nightmare trying to find people to even talk about some of the stuff I was talking about to do with utility bills and that, to get ideas from people who might have done everything, and it just wasn't there. And you've just got to start making those little connections with people. And I got in touch with some absolutely great minds who just put me on the right path with things, and conceptually I understood it straight away. But again, we've still not got that concrete mechanism, whereas A, B and C equals D. We've not been able to get to that yet. Or if people have, which I would tend to say that definitely people have, they either go away quietly and thank you very much and don't speak about it, or well, don't know. But there's definitely people that have got out of this system and got access to the trust and stuff like that, because there's people that have disappeared. But you can't quite put your finger on it, but it's an interesting time to be alive. That's for certain.
It is a very interesting time to be alive, and what you're saying about people coming together and being the mass awakening thing, I agree with, is complete load of bollocks. Well, I agree with what the sentiment of the people that I've been in this. I've been doing this since 2006, and the mass awakening. We keep hearing about the mass awakening. It's little bit like we keep hearing about Hillary Clinton's just about to get arrested,
Yeah.
And hung by her tits from from White House on White House lawn. We keep
hearing
things. And but you see, there might be a mass awakening. There might be a mass awakening in the sense that people are understanding that something's wrong. It's just that then they may be being directed, like we were talking about the people we were talking to last night, and people in other groups and other situations that are being directed and told that this is the problem, rather than the people that are actually the problem. So again, it's a diversionary tactic. So there might be a lot more people waking up and thinking, well, this is not right, something's not right, but then they're being sort of led into, right, okay, well, you probably we can herd you into this group here, and you'll feel at home because those are people that you would identify with, that are similar to you, and you can then herd everybody into, because we've got such differences between us. People can be herded into different areas, and there might be a mass awakening. There might be a low, that, you know, there might be so many people that are open to this information and able to soak up this information and perhaps have a better understanding, but they're being diverted into other causes and into other reasons for that for what they perceive as they're getting a bad deal.
Yeah. Yeah, that's you can see with the way things are shaping up for me, Jason, is I look around my hometown, and I know you can get a bit lost in romanticizing over nostalgia, can't you? My town has completely changed. It doesn't look the same. The accents aren't the same. You don't have we used to have virtually our own language, and that's virtually gone with my generation. You know, the younger generations are more got a Manc type of twang, whereas our accent was completely distinct. It's the same with Wigan as well. They had a similar accent, but it was still distinct from the Lee accent. You have got now a mixture that just seems to be one type of a bland accent. Don't get me wrong, you've still got people with broad accents, but in comparison to when I was growing up, especially in areas you know, terraced houses that were housed mill workers and pit workers who were Lathers born and bred, those are now all up for rent. And you know, there's different, not just nationalities that have moved in there, but people from outside of town, English people who've moved in there, they've got different accents. It was just unusual when I was growing up to see anything like that. I mean, there was loads of Asians here, but not many that I went to school with. There was one Asian kid in my year at school. When I went to high school, there's a couple more. Now there's a lot more Asians. There is absolutely nothing wrong with people coming together and making a community, because people can. You just leave people to themselves naturally. They don't do things like this unless there's something being promoted. And then you see that there is an agenda of mass migration. You can see that they've wrote about it. You can see what they want to do with it. Yet we are left arguing with the migrants, and that's when we're arguing with the wrong people. If you were in a war-torn country with your family and children, somebody said, "Hey, if you come here, we'll give you this, 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 and this, and you can come out of the war," you'd go. I'd go. Anybody would. So what's the point in arguing with these people who've had to move from a country? This is what we're told anyway, because you've got a 25-year-old man, an Iranian, who's in a high school in Leicester because he's claimed that he's a 15-year-old. He's got a full beard and everything, and he's even told the kids in his class that he's 25. He's married. What is going on? How is that happening? There's absolutely no control over anything. And if that can happen to my town, what is happening further south? Look at London. People are just getting machete attacked in broad daylight as if it's just a normal thing. It's like taking your mobile phone with you now, taking a machete out around London. There's something not right, and people will not bother looking. Do you know what? It's funny. Somebody defriended me the other day because they put the world is bonkers enough without people like you posting conspiracy theories on Facebook as well. He's never even looked at anything. He saw one article and then that was it. And this is what is happening. People are making assumptions based on an article that I might not even have a dog in the fight with. It's just information that I post so other people can read it. It's no different to getting off a bus and chasing after me because I've left a newspaper on the bus and you've read an article you don't agree with. So you've chased me down the street to complain to me about it. It's bullshit. Just ridiculous. Yeah, just scroll on. Just scroll on, or I said to people, I said, I know my news feed does take up a lot of people's feed. It does take over because I post quite a bit. And I said, just unfollow me. And then if you want to go and look, you can. If you don't see anything. So you don't have to be extreme and cut me out of your life type thing. But people don't want, if you were telling people, you know, I might be saying, well, this is the truth. If it doesn't agree with the truth, they don't want to know you.
No, you're right. You're right. And to be fair, I don't know if people have unfriended me for things like that. I very rarely post anyway. I just post about the show because I find that it's well, it takes up far too much of my time as it is when I'm just posting about show. But yeah, I do see a lot of you. You do post a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of rubbish in there as well, though, Paul. But there is a lot of good stuff as well. So if you're on Facebook, Paul Webster, get on to him, become a friend of his. He's always posting interesting articles and most of them without comment as well. So it's just make your own mind up sort of thing, isn't it?
That's exactly what I do for it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do occasionally comment, especially if people have tagged me in stuff and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's just for people to, I've come across some information. Here, I've had a look at it. Now you have a look at it, see what you think. But people automatically attach because I've posted it. That's my belief. That's not how this works. If you want to know what I believe in, then you should actually bother speaking to me. Text can be taken all different ways. I very rarely try and debate anymore on text because people, especially when you're getting trolls who are just asking the same inane question or calling you the same names, even though you're trying to explain where you're coming from. I had a full discussion with a guy, and I went through the bills of exchange virtually word for word of how I thought it worked. And he said, that's a load of bullshit. And I said, well, have you read it? Went, no, I've got better things to do with my life. That's what you're up against. So he's got better things to do with his life by trying to pay bills that makes our national debt go up so that our government can then say, we've got to take more stuff off you. That's the kind of people that you're up against because they believe they know the system because they've been taught it. And if it doesn't agree with the system, and again, I went back to my godson who went through school, college, university. We ended up having a fallout a few years back because what I was saying wasn't in his school books. If it's not in his school books, it's not right. That's that. But because he then had to try and prove me wrong completely, he actually debunked himself and actually started to find out information that didn't necessarily say, I agree with you, Paul, but he's gone, well, there's a little bit more into this. I'm going to have to stop being opinionated first without, you know, scratching the surface and then having a little bit of a dig first. And I'm murdered for that, Jason. If I find something interesting to look at, then I want to dig right to the bottom. I don't want to just scratch the surface. If I'm really interested in it, I'll dig right to the bottom. And when you start digging, it's like what people say. Some people say that, oh, God, you can see conspiracy in everything. It only takes two people to conspire for a conspiracy. If we don't know any facts about it, then it's a theory. But the fact is, if the facts that we're given don't match to what seemingly has happened, then we need to investigate further. But we don't get that. We get, oh, no, that's it. That's it. You know, we've had it where people have been, oh, it's suicide. How's he jumped from a second floor window, landed 200 yards up the road onto railings, and he's jumped? You know, the police aren't interested in crimes that are touching on anything to do with that could get people in trouble like that. In that case, you're talking about big city bankers who are going to lose a lot of money. You're talking 800 billion. And this woman can't get representation in the City of London, even though she's found all the accounts, all live, despite being told that she was bankrupt. So if somebody worth 800 billion can't get help, then people are up against it. But people need to get to that point themselves, Jason. There's no, I know we keep repeating ourselves, but I would never say stop paying your bills and just go and do something else and protest. It doesn't. I wouldn't know how to advise anybody like that, because if somebody had advised me to do that 10 years ago, I'd have told them where to go. but they came for me and said they were doing stuff. I was either to pull my pants down and say, will you pull my pants up when you're finished? Or I was going to tie my pants tight with my belt. So you're going to fight me for this.
Excellent. Well, anyway, we're about at an hour, so we're just going to have a quick break just to reboost and book our ideas up somewhat. You're listening to Raconteurs News. No guest tonight, just me, myself, and Paul Webster Tavares. Paul Webster Tavares, by the way, is Russian for comrade. So we are the lefties. I just loved being called a lefter. And honestly, it didn't bother me whatsoever. I thought it were great. And he sent me a text message afterwards saying, you know, I know you're a lefty and all this sort of thing. Oh, brilliant.
So, unbelievable.
You're listening to the Lefty Show. We are the loony left over here on Raconteurs News. We'll be back after one of these records. It's 3 minutes 49 seconds, and we'll be back right after this.
Making a goddamn nuisance of myself, poking my nose in everybody's business. Oh God, will I ever learn? Cause it always backfires on me. I can't control myself no more. So when I just stand, never go out. Every day is trouble, every day is trouble for me. Is it my voice, or my face, or the clothes that I wear? Cause something's getting me noticed in a bad way. I must say, I ain't looking for shit, but it finds me. Particularly when I'm out driving. Slow down, you know, it's irrelevant, mate, got a racetrack. How the fuck did you pass your test? You're a pest, you got my heart beating in my chest. No wonder I'm so irate. Why didn't you fucking indicate? I wish I had a shit gun fire at your window, bitch. Making a goddamn nuisance of myself, poking my nose in everybody's business. Oh God, will I ever learn? Cause it always backfires on me. I can't control myself no more. So why don't I just stand, never go out? Every day is trouble, every day is trouble for me. So I try to get my shit done quick. Don't want to waste too much time on the streets with the bricks. I know they're going to take my energy. Give me road rage, then I commit a felony. Score some weed, then I drive home readily. Hang my car keys up and calm down steadily. Things on my mind when I let them get to me. Load up on some rubber get stone, write a melody. Start getting high, having less of the hunches. Put it on hold while I answer the munchies. Get about the gigs while I'm grinding the bunches. Really need to learn just to roll with the punches.
Algún día me perdonado, aquí te estaré esperando, porque yo era muy feliz cuando tú abrías los ojos. Andaba por la noche y andaba muy perdido, me faltaban que tus ojos me mostraran el camino, caminar, porque yo era muy feliz cuando tú abrías los ojos.
Making a goddamn nuisance of myself, poking my nose in everybody's business. Oh God, will I ever learn? Cause it always backfires on me. I can't control myself no more. So why don't I just stand, never go out? Every day is trouble, every day is trouble for me. Every day is trouble. Every day is trouble, making a goddamn nuisance of myself, poking my nose in everybody's business. Oh God, will I ever learn? Cause it always backfires on me. I can't control myself no more. So why don't I just stand, never go out? Every day is trouble, 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 every day is trouble for me.
Every day is trouble for me. That's Honky RR by Heath West. My old mate we play his records because we don't get wankered off YouTube. They don't go, oh, you can't play that, you cunt, it don't belong to you. So we get shit banned and stuff. So we keep with the non-copyrighted stuff. It's Heath's anyway, and we've got his copyright because he's the official Raconteurs news musician. And just in case you're wondering, I don't know what you were doing during the break, Paul, but I turned my camera off because I realised that it was time for my weekly testicular cancer check. So I had my shorts off and I had my legs spread, and I was having a bit of a feel. And then I realised today I'm identifying as a woman, so I had to take my top off and film my tits instead. So that's what I was doing. Just in case you were wondering, what we do when the camera's turned off. It could be absolutely anything, and I mean that sincerely. Good break, Paul.
Mate, after that Skype chat that you endured me and Andy through when you was in the bath, I don't want any more information.
Oh yeah, that were good, that weren't it? Yeah, you don't know that, but it was Andy and me and Webby were on a Skype chat, and it coincided with my bath, and so I got in bath, and we were all on video, and they could see me in the bath, but don't worry, they couldn't see any of the good or long stuff. So I kept my modesty. It weren't broadcast everywhere. See, I've got to be careful with you boys. I don't know what you're identifying as today, so my nudity is probably going to be curbed just a little bit when it comes to the internet. Well, in fact, it comes to everywhere apart from the bedroom. I've got all Alan Partridge. All Alan Partridge. Webby, second half, mate. What we're going to do? I thought I wanted to get your take, because this is, I'm sat at home quite a lot during the day. I'm trying to do as much as I can on the Raconteurs News website, and I've got Andy's kindly given me the raconteursnews.com URL, so the domain name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect that at my earliest convenience. When I learn how to do it and I've read all instructions on how to do it, I'm going to direct that straight to the forum. So the forum's going to be there. And the raconteursnews.com will go to the forum. All the information, people can then post whatever information they want on the forum, and we can post on there as and when the shows are going to be as well. So that's what's going to happen with raconteursnews.com. It's going to be directed to the forum. So if you're a member of the forum, it's still there. It's you can use it. It's got so much information in there and it's from around about 2012, 2011. So there's lots of good old information as well. And if you're new to this sort of stuff, there's perhaps stuff that you've not seen before that has been out as well. So go and have a look on the forum, and raconteursnews.com will very soon be directed straight to there. Webby, this second half, I wanted to, like I said, before I went off on a tangent, I'm sat at home all day and I'm getting these stupid adverts for just about anything. Donkeys like with ingrowing toenails. They all want me money. Salvation Army wants 19 quid. 19 quid they want, Salvation Army. It's a lot of money, and it's what they're doing is they're begging to the people that have got the least, because they're sat at home, they're not at work. So either they've got the least or they've got the most, because they can be sat at home, or they've got the least legs or whatever. They're asking people, and what gets me is that there's these people that are well-known actors and things like that, and you sort of think to yourself, just a minute, how much more money compared? I mean, you probably earn 400,000 times more than I earn. I don't know, and yet you're asking me to give whatever I can. It's just ridiculous. What's your take on it?
Well, my take on all these charities, particularly this Children in Need one now that's coming up. You've got the wheel Gary Barlow out, who tax dodges, doesn't pay any tax over in this country, and he comes out and says, you've got to give us some money for these kids, and these kids don't see the money. You're paying off CEOs, you're laundering money. That's all these charities are doing, because very, very little get through to these. Going off at people asking for money, as there was one guy who was talking about an article where they were trying to raise funds for kids in Africa who couldn't blink, Jason. So these poor kids who can't blink, we must now give money for these kids who can't blink. You know, they might be eating well, but they can't blink. Our priorities are all wrong. We don't get anything right in this country, and yet we're told we've got to help everything in every other country, everywhere. We then arm people and blame these people for why we've got to take stuff off, you know, lose our freedoms and everything. There's a big game going on. People don't want to look at it because it doesn't affect their lives. Just going off what you were saying there, you can see yourself, aren't you, in 30 years, how much things have changed. And if somebody had told you 30 years ago, Jason, you wouldn't have said that this country would have put up with what's happened in 30 years that have gone on. Yeah, we don't really go to, you know, apart from poll tax, we don't really take to the streets and for proper protests. But look how many people had to die or go to jail before the poll tax stuff came. This universal credit, it's going to do the same. You've got 4 mums who are going to a high court now to take government universal credit scheme to court because they've been left with no money, no heating. This is just, if it's not corporate manslaughter, I don't know what else you want to call it, because if these companies don't know that they're doing this, then they shouldn't be operating, because when they operate in commerce, they've got to adhere to the bills of exchange, and if they're not doing that, then where do we go? If they can just make up their own rules and do what they like, and then they get help but from the police and the courts, you run out of words to try and explain to people, because people aren't stupid. They understand that banks don't lend money. They understand where a debt-based economy is, and they understand as a creditor that they should have a lot more power than they have. But then it's, well, I don't know what to do. And then they want somebody to do it for them and spoon feed it. And you can't do that, because most of us are trying to learn it as we go. I mean, God, if I'd have known if I know 10 years ago where I know now, I'd still be in my house, because there were certain things that I could have done, but I didn't find out about them quick enough. That's why people have got to come together and take all the information. You know, people have learned that going standing in a county court setting saying I'm a free man of the land doesn't work. People have learned that. I touched on the free man land, the free man stuff back 2009-10. So it didn't work straight away, because it doesn't matter. They're not listening. They're not there to hear you. Everything that was on documentation, they could ignore. And it's because it's public. They don't have to. You've gone to negotiate. That's all they need to do. If you've not touched on their negotiations, they'll just stand there and let you crack on. Have you got?
Sorry, dude. I'm sorry. I was just reading chat. I was just having a look in chat room then, and yeah, it's getting back to charities. The people that are running these charities, they're earning obscene amounts of money, aren't they? I mean, they can't think the cancer charities, the CEO's on 250 grand a year. So if you're running around in a field in pink and getting all muddy and that with your friends and thinking it's such a good fun and what have you, and you've raised, I don't know, you might have raised between years, you might have raised £1,000 in the memory of somebody that's been dear to you. And these are good people doing this. They're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
They're doing it for the right reasons, but once you point that out, then you become the bad guy. You're the one that's you're the one that's trying to spoil their bubble, and you're the one that's damaging the memory of their dear departed person that died of cancer, and probably did get some help from Macmillans and stuff like that. But I mean, this is the sort of stuff that the cancers. Mostly caused by environmental things which are manufactured. So the companies that are manufacturing these things should be liable for the care of the people that they infect with things. There's vaccines as well, but this is all put upon ordinary people, pensioners, People with, with an over 50s plan, so that they, that when they actually die, they've been paying in God knows how much a month for 30 years because they got it when they were 50 and they die at 80, and then the funeral plan thing finds some clause to be able to get out of paying the 3 or 4 grand that they were due anyway. It's just it's like everything constantly is a milking. It's a milking experience. Every single thing that you do, people are trying to milk you on the TV. People are trying to milk you when you go out. You've got to pay for parking in certain places. Well, I mean, how difficult is it? Just the parking stuff. It's just hospital parking. I'm lucky. I've got a disabled badge. We don't pay for hospital parking, but there are staff members that are having to pay huge amounts of a good percentage of the wages on just being able to park at work, just be able to take their own transport, their own little, they're going into a job, particularly a nurse or, somebody who's working with trauma is going into a job and they're probably going to do a 12-hour shift. They're going to see lots of things, at least allow them the courtesy of being able to go in their own little pod, in the morning where they can listen to some music that's going to make them feel nice, going to make them feel better, going to make them feel good for the day, rather than getting on some tram that's got 4 drunks on it, and then there's probably some racist bloke having a go at somebody else. But we're penalising these people for wanting those simple things that would make the life a lot easier and a lot better. But it's just every single thing, no matter what it is a milking exercise. It's just to extract as much money from an individual. And I know you and Dave, you said money doesn't exist, and you and Dave had a bit of a disagreement about that last night. But the conventional term money and it's costing. Let's face it, if a nurse is having to pay 10 quid a night for a 12-hour shift, that's probably an hour of her time that she's had to pay, or to be able to park in where she's working at a place of work. It's ridiculous.
It is. It's absolutely ridiculous. But again, the cracks are opening up throughout the system. You've got a fella there now. He's paraplegic. He can't move his arms. He can't see. He can't hear. He can't even eat. Yet they are taking him in for a PIP assessment because they're not sure. They want to interview him. This is the disgusting state of what has happened. The disabled people and the elderly. How can you describe how they treat the elderly and the disabled? If they can treat them like they are, people of ages 18 to 60 living on a street is nothing to these people. They look at balance sheets. They don't see a living, breathing man or woman with kids who are struggling. They say, oh, well, you've got to pay these bills. Well, you can't pay these bills in this debt-based economy. So now what would you like me to do? Why are you taking my house? Why are you taking all this stuff off me? What do you want me to do? You can't do it. You physically can't do what they are requesting you to do. So you've got to offer the remedy. When you're offering the remedy, Jason, and they still ignore it, you know that you're in for a fight. But if it was easy, everybody would do it. It's not easy. It's not easy. But waiting around for somebody to crack it so that you can come in on the end of it, then good luck if that's the case. But you've got to hope that somebody cracks it before they come to you, because the famous quote of Martin Niemöller when he became a pastor. He was at a demonstration in America after World War II, and he was demonstrating with college students, and they asked him why he was there, and he said, well, I was in Germany, I ended up in a concentration camp. He said, and when they came for the trade unionists, I wasn't anything. When they came for the immigrants, I wasn't immigrant, so I said nothing. When they came for the Jews, I wasn't Jewish, so I said nothing. By the time they came for Martin Niemöller, there was nobody left to say anything. And that's why he was stood at the demonstration line. He said, because now I will always speak out for people. Until people do that, we just got to keep doing what we do. I mean,
another example, when I was watching the local news this morning, and really I seriously only put it on for a few minutes because that's just about as much as I can take. And the weather girl's a bit dodgy these days, and they used to have a pretty tasty weather girl, but she's a bit dodgy these days, so I generally turn over. But I watched a couple of, there were just a couple of, there was the one about the terrorist book for children, the book about terrorism for children, and also to sort of add to the point, and I don't know whether this is a local thing, local to Leeds, because we're on Look North, so it's round here we call Look North, Look Leeds. It covers Sheffield and Barnsley and everywhere, but it's always Look fucking Leeds, you know. They always. So Look Leeds. I don't know whether it was local to Leeds or whether it's a national thing, but there were landlords were going to protest. There were an implementation of a tenant tax, so they would be taxed for every tenant that they've got, which then inevitably goes onto rents. You know, the landlords need to cover the costs, so it goes on to rents. Then rents increase, and more people become homeless. So we're in this situation now where, like you said, there's 200,000 people. One in 200 people in this country is homeless. So they haven't got somewhere they can call home, where they can put their belongings. Somewhere they might be sofa surfing, they might be getting a room here and there from the friends, but they're the hidden homeless. Of course, then we've got the ones that are on the street. But we've got all these homeless people, and what is happening is the government. I don't know whether it's local. If someone could just have a look at that tenant tax, but it was Leeds landlords that were featured in this feature. So I don't know whether it's local, but it's just another thing. It's all because it always. If they might say, oh, landlords make too much money or they do this, but that they're going to pass that extra money, that increase in price on to the tenants, and that's just cause more problems. I mean, this is just so ridiculous that if a 6-year-old kid had come to me and said this is a very good idea, I'd punch him in the face. I would. It's just ridiculous. Ridiculous.
The thing with the taxes, they look to introduce a tax for everything. It's nothing new. I obviously don't remember it, but I remember reading about the window tax, because I remember seeing all these old buildings where all these big beautiful buildings had all these windows that are all bricked up. And I remember saying to my dad as a kid, well, why are all these windows bricked up? Why have they had windows there and then bricked them up? And he said, well, if you had, depending on how many windows you had, you would be taxed. And as a kid, I knew that meant they would take money off you for having windows in your house or your business. And I'm going, wow, you can't even have windows. And people, I knew, I was maybe about 8, 9, 10. I knew that it was meant to be living in a free country. I could go to a supermarket and decide whether I wanted strawberry milkshake, banana or chocolate. That was a bit of a freedom of choice. But then as you get older and you get ploughed into the system, and then you do the chop, chop, busy, busy, work, work, bang, bang type shit, and then you've got a family and you've got a house and you've got bills to pay, life takes over, and then you are stuck in auto mode then. And unless something traumatic comes along and pulls that rug from under your feet, you'll just carry on going as that life, as however your life is panning out. Funny thing is, God always has a bit of a strange sense of humour and thinks that you should learn something. You shouldn't just be here to just have your lawn and your house and your car and everything be perfect. Maybe meant to learn something here. There's quite a few lessons to be learned. Again, we come back to, will people go and look for this stuff? Will they ask questions? People are asking questions, but they don't. There's no way the people I know who are ready to do anything. But if push comes to shove, maybe they will.
Yeah, maybe they will. I'm just having a look in the chat room where Super Lead says you can't punch a 6-year-old. Yeah, I do realise that now. But you know, at the time, I was enraged, and I probably plead some sort of insanity or diminished responsibility. Andy's still in there as well. Andy's saying some stuff. Society, the spectacle I do, mate. The window tax was aimed at the rich. Window glass was expensive in those days. But again, going with the window tax, it's almost as if it's a taxation on light, on the sun. You know, you're being taxed for having the sun inside your house and the light, and that's to me is what it is. And then if the windows are, if you've got no windows and you've got no natural light, then you're gonna have to light it another way, aren't you? So people get to sell fuel and stuff like that. Perhaps that was behind it. I don't know. I'm just talking out my arse. Oh yeah, Kendo Taylor says, yeah, momentary lapse of reason, Jason. Yeah, that's right, Kendo. I'm certainly not going. I'm not in the business of punching 6-year-olds in the face. I think that's probably that phrase is that sentence is probably going to come back and haunt me at some point.
I reckon it could end up in one. That could end up in one of Eve's songs. That one of his mixes.
Yeah, it probably could. Yeah, it probably could end up in one of Eve's songs. Blah 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 blah. Distilled water. We got. I mean, our chat room. We've got like a superb chat room. It is just awesome, and it's usually people do talk about the show and stuff, but usually like there's so many different conversations that are going on in there, and it's so interesting and intriguing to read them because people being polite to each other and just being nice and there being no biting, and I like that. I particularly like that. I think it shows that we're here at Raconteurs News and all our listeners. We're grown-up people and we can disagree on things like we did last night with Dave and Sharon, and like I've done with John Irwin before, and with Neil Sanders we disagree with him as well. We can still disagree and all be nice to each other. So that's always nice to see in chat room. So what we doing now, Paul?
Well, I've just come across an article about that from last year, and I've never heard anything about this, but obviously I reckon this is linked to Gordon Bowden stuff. UK banks exposed to money laundering in South Africa. That's a review of HSBC and Standard Chartered. So that, again, because when Gordon was on, he was talking about all the shell companies that are operating out of Finchley Road, and a lot of it was to do with the South African companies over in South Africa. That's where they seem to be laundering, and HSBC seem to be the favourite money launderer for the Mexican drug cartels, because I think they laundered something like 240 billion in drug money and got fined 120 million. So they laundered 240 bill and got fined 120 mil. That's not bad business, that. Nobody goes to jail, slap on the wrist. That's it, you know, you give a man a gun, he rob a bank, give a man a bank, he can rob everybody. And that's exactly what's happening. Gordon's stuff is forensic in showing it. Will they ever see the inside of a courtroom? Let's bloody hope so, because it's about time that people have got to get to the point that this life is not meant to be this hard. It's not meant to be this hard. We are being forced into a reality that is not of our making, even though it is of our making, because society is engineered in such a way that they know that in certain demographics, if they introduce this or introduce that, they can change cultures, they can change demographics. You put a complete mixture of cultures into a place where, let's say there was like my town, where there was very, very few people from outside of the country that lived there. then you take it to now, and you can see that the demographics have just changed. And what it does is, even if it's unintentional, it makes you suspicious of others because you don't know them, and it creates a mistrust. Even if you're not concentrating that you don't trust them, you don't know them. It's totally different to what you've been brought up with. You have to gradually get used to those cultures, but we're not allowed to get used to somebody's culture because we're being forced to accept that culture. Now, I can't go into another country and force them to accept my stuff. It doesn't work like that. But in all the countries that this is happening to, that is being pushed. Look at Germany and Sweden, for God's sake. They're an absolute mess. Sweden in particular. And you've still got Swedish women saying, no, there's nothing wrong with the migrants. How did she put it? It was, yes, the situation it's not that bad, they said, in Sweden, but the reason that it could be better is we should have introduced them to our country better. We should have been better. So the fact that they're coming in and rape has gone up 400%, the Swedes are actually blaming themselves. That's great brainwashing.
That's exactly what they do, innit? I mean, it's the same with climate change. Climate change, your fault. And if you've, there are certain people, I mean, that would stick the nose up at somebody that didn't have an electric hybrid fucking knitted wheels car. You know that you put you shit in top of it, but it'll only work one day and it'll go 100 miles. And then you'll need to have another 8 shits before it'll go again. This is what it is. But you get these people you get that snobbery, don't you? It's like, we've achieved what we wanted. We've got his house. It's all good. Husband's got a nice job. He's got a nice car. I've got plenty of time on my hands. What shall I do? Well, I'll be an environmental thing, I'll read up on it. I'll look on internet. I'll sell recycling, chuck your stuff in thing. You can do that, and you can make here's how to make some shoes out of them for your kids for school. Out of your plastic milk bottles. That's what you get. That's the sort of people that we've conditioned, and it drives you potty, doesn't it? It does drive you potty.
It's when you're seeing college students in this country. I mean, I thought it was bad enough and being weird being in America, but looking for safe spaces for students because they may be upset, that's slightly worrying. I wouldn't have liked university. It probably would have been daunting, new place, all those new faces, all that stuff, pressure to learn and stuff. Well, when you've got student unions saying that you can't clap anymore because you may intimidate or upset somebody there, this is getting beyond. It's getting beyond the joke now. To think that they can tell you how to behave and put legislation in for this, and then argue that we should stay in Europe, where all that legislation would be the only law that we have. So therefore, we wouldn't have a remedy. We would have to have business negotiations on everything. That would be my biggest thing, because the banks, the utility companies, all that, they want us to be in Europe because we lose common law. We go full civil law, just like all of Europe. It'll be illegal to talk about things, Jason. We won't be able to talk about certain things. It'll be illegal. And me, as soon as it's illegal to question something, that's very suspicious for me.
Yeah, very suspicious. Also, I saw another article today that I was looking at one, and there was I think it was on the BBC North website again when I was looking for that story that I told you about earlier on that I can't remember now. Was that good? Book and that, yeah, that's it. When I'm looking for that, and it was about some geezer that had been noticing and had been recording the decline in sparrows in his area. He said that they'd fallen in the last year by 60%. I don't know what you make of that. I can't remember where it was. This is me, you see. I read things. I'm like a rumor. I'm just telling you a rumor that I've heard. I'm telling you it as gospel, but and I've got missed loads of bits out and everything. But there was this guy, and he was talking about sparrows, and apparently sparrow numbers have declined. I think he was talking about tree sparrows. I think that's what he called them. He called them tree sparrows, and he was doing a particular thing and trying to encourage tree sparrows back. So that's an interesting one that I saw. But here's one from the BBC website, which here we go. It's the headline is "Fake News: Can Teenagers Spot It?" So it's talking about fake news. Let me just read this. Fake news, misinformation, clickbait, whatever you choose to call it, is one of the scourges of our time. Yes, it is. Oh, God, rape and all that sort of shit. Pales in.
So now we're being told to click on a fake news site to tell us about fake news.
That's correct, yes. If we are to make it less of a threat to democracy, imagine, can you see that language? If we are to make it less of a threat to democracy. Now, you can imagine that line being in an Adolf Hitler or a Mussolini speech, can't you?
Yeah.
If we are to make it less of a threat to democracy. Oh, yeah, great accent. But, you know, but, you know,
so hang on, you named an Italian and a German, you did a Russian accent. What's all that about?
I don't know. God, yeah, I've probably been Stalin with like somewhere. If we are to make it less of a threat to democracy, that effort is going to need to start in schools. So here we go. We're talking about going into schools and telling kids what is real and what is not real, and not to believe things that don't come from, well, such as themselves, the boy buggering corporation. There's actually a game. It's called the BBC iReporter, and it says right in the BBC Reporter iReporter game, you become a social media journalist faced with a major breaking story. Look at this. It's good, isn't it? They're training them.
Yeah.
The story goes like this: a cyber attack has taken down some major social media sites, and all sorts of information about floods into the newsroom. The young reporters have to make a decision about what to publish, balancing the need for speed and impact with accuracy. This is ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, this is a game that kids are encouraged to play.
The BBC's worrying about accuracy. Wow.
I know.
Wow. But again, it doesn't shock me that the BBC are promoting stuff aimed at kids. The normalisation of paedophilia, particularly in the last 10 years, is just I just can't imagine it. I mean, God, if I go back to when my mum and dad were alive, if my mum and dad had heard that, I don't know. It would have been incredulous to them that people were campaigning. I mean, 1980, people were campaigning for the sex age to be lowered to 10. And that was, but they were trying to become a political party. Now, I don't understand at what point that can now be classed as normal 30 years on. That can't be classed as normal. Teaching kids at 4 or 5 year old about sex and listen, are you sure you want to? Are you sure you're a boy? If you don't identify as a boy, that's all right. You don't have to identify. Would you like to visit a clinic and maybe have some therapy? Christ, I didn't know what toy car to play with. Never mind whether I wanted a penis or not. It was just something I had. I'll deal with that at a certain point when I need to. You know, it's what is being rammed down people's throats and what they're allowing to be rammed down the throats is just, it's anathema to me, Jason. We can debate about vaccines all day long. Somebody saying that it's all right what they put into this vaccine, it's minimal, it doesn't do this, it doesn't do that. Anybody who's saying that putting poison into an immune system that isn't developed is an okay thing, then I'm going to suggest that it isn't, in my opinion. If I'd have known about that, when my daughter was born, she wouldn't have had it. She had the HPV vaccine when she was 14, 10 years ago. If I'd known about it, she wouldn't have had it because of.
Same here. I stopped mine from having it. I stopped my daughter from having it. Listen, Webby, I've got to. People are going to be sat on the edge of the seats. They want to know how this storyline goes, how it finishes. Right? This is it's in the BBC report. I Reporter game. Right? So there's social media journalist is faced with a major breaking story. So they want to know why certain websites have gone down. And here we go. Here's the options. Did the whole thing begin when a satellite crashed to Earth in Yorkshire? As someone who's emailed with a photo claims, has the cyber attack caused one brand of mobile phone to catch fire? With cash machines shutting down and planes grounded, is it true a social media claims that people are marching on Downing Street? Fuck me. I mean, honestly, this is on their website. This is what... And
do you know what, Jason? They won't be just random questions then. That will have been thought through for kids to answer those questions and given those options. When they seemingly do their psychological and aptitude tests with these kind of things, it's the same as when you get your surveys at work and stuff like that. They're looking for things that they can take from you, looking for things that you'll just grass yourself up over. It's dangerous. It's dangerous because you're giving people power to take things from you, and you don't understand exactly what you're doing. And when you're aiming at kids, and kids see that as being normal, that's life. This is what you do. That's what you have these vaccinations because we look after you. Those kids believe that, they pass that on to their kids, and then we've started the cycle again. And they only need 2 generations, maybe 3, but they only need 2 generations to change it. You've got school kids now. They're just, I don't know. How do you describe them? I mean, see where I live, there's a lot of the kids seem normal. They're all on phones and everything. Don't get me wrong with that, but I can actually have conversations with some of the high school kids. They actually have an idea of what's going on. But when you look at it as a generalization of kids in the country, they've not got the thinking skills to answer a question. They'll wait for, they'll listen to what you're saying, but they've already got an answer to give you. In other words, they're not actually listening to what you're saying. They're waiting to give you their response. And that will be in a soundbite, and it'll probably be no more than 10 words or something like that in a sentence. And when you start to explore them, if you question that sentence and they've got to break that sentence apart to explore it, that's when you struggle with a conversation. And that's been done to these people on purpose. And
the thing is, Webby, if it turns into a conversation, immediately it gets shut down. I know this from experience with my daughter. If we have a disagreement and if I raise my voice to her, she says I'm shouting at her and leaves. I mean, we had a situation, last week, actually, before Monday's show. She'd been round and she perceived that I'd raised my voice to her, and she'd gone. She'd left. There's no way to be able to communicate. There's no. They've lost the ability. In fact, I don't even think they ever had it because they've been so dragged up in school and just taught that this is right, 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 this is what this is, this is what this is. And when somebody challenges that, they don't have the cognitive skills that they need to be able to critically think about what someone's saying to them and then respond in a manner. So what happens is the subconscious mind then gets told, and this is what's been drilled into these kids, is the subconscious mind then says, right, hang on, I can't deal with this, because your subconscious mind, all it does is protect your conscious mind. So it will then say, we can't deal with this, I'm withdrawing you, I'm taking over, and this is what we're going to do. We're going into fight or flight mode. We're in flight mode because that is the way that she's been conditioned in her subconscious. Her subconscious mind tells her that in that situation where there's confrontation, flight is the way to go. And it also works. It not only works between like a parent and a child, but it also works in situations where they might be confronted by so-called authority, by police or parking people, and they're more likely to accept what is being given to them, to dished out to them, because in their mind they've got, their subconscious has got this flight mode, and instead of fight, it's flight. And the only thing they want to do is they want to get out of that situation as quickly as possible so that they don't feel uncomfortable. Now, this is what we're up against. This is all being drilled into, and this is why we've got safe places in universities. We've got these pussies who can't do a single, can't do a thing, cannot. You can't clap. It's a wonder. I'll tell you what. I used to work in a bar in Sheffield called Babylon. It were open late till 4 o'clock in the morning, but we had a lot of students in, and I noticed the change in the students over the years when I were doing it. So at first it'd be, you get some students and you'd be able to have a talk with them, you'd be able to chat with them, and you'd be able to, you know, I'd ask them what they were doing, and then I'd perhaps have a little bit of a talk to them about it, you know. But you don't even get that anymore. They couldn't even look you in the eye. And I just remember the one time, and I thought to myself, this shit's over. I can't be doing this anymore. But I think it was a Thursday night, and all these students come in. It were just opened up, and this big gang of students come in, and there's must be 20 of them. And this kid comes up to me and it's, oh my God, you know, oh, you've got to play this record. You've got to play this record. I say, I ain't got it. Oh, you did get it. So I got it off YouTube. You've got to play it. It's the next big thing. I promise you. It's absolutely brilliant. And so I thought, oh, fuck it. There's nobody else in anyway. So I put it on. And it was that fucking Gangnam Style. And I'd never heard it, right? And I thought, and I'd never heard it. And they're all on dance floor in formation, all doing this stupid fucking dance. And like, I just thought that it was at that point I thought to myself, this kid has just come up to me and told me to play this record as if he were telling me where I could find crown jewels and flog them, you know, down at cash converters. So, you know, that's the way that he presented it to me. But it was just ridiculous. And I just thought to myself, I can't be doing this anymore. I just cannot. I didn't do it for very much longer after that. Did not do it for very much longer. But you know, the change. It's all been implanted. It's all at an early age, like with this terrorism stuff. This booklet that we were talking about earlier on. It's implanted. It's in the brain. You know, a kid might not know anything about terrorism, but in 10 years' time, that kid that read that book, in 10 years' time, he might not know anything, nothing at all about that. You'll mention whatever terrorist attack were done in there, and he'll be able to tell you who did it, who it were, and why they did it. And you know, and it's all because it's implanted at an early age. It's all implanted subconsciously. And the subconscious mind is it's powerful. And you know, they implant these things in kids' subconscious mind as well, so that when one does appear on TV, the see news and the terrorism, it then triggers in the subconscious mind what they've read in that book. And because your subconscious mind it doesn't have any sense of time, your subconscious mind. So it's as if you're rereading it there and then, you know, that it will trigger it, and it will be, it's triggered as if it's happening at the time. So the first time that you read it when you were a kid, it might be 10 years down the line before it gets triggered again. But if you see something, it'll get triggered again. It's in your subconscious mind, and you know then who they're saying has done it. and you've not done an ounce of research. It's all been planted in there in your younger days when you were 4, 5, 6, 7, or whatever age. I mean, kids up to, I think kids up to the age of 25 are still got like what I'd call a plasticine brain that can be molded into, you know. So there's hope left for some of them, but it's not. And it's a thing. It's not their fault. The victims in all this, the victims just as much as everybody else. It's just so frustrating that you can.
But they'll fight you to deny that, Jason. They'll fight that they've been brainwashed. The factor is that they're that clever with this brainwashing stuff that it's so subtly done. You know, you won't unless it's pointed out to you, because once this subliminal stuff is pointed out, you see it everywhere when it's being used. But they've spent so much time and money, Jason, and you were talking about the subconscious. How powerful is it? Well, they absolutely shatter consciousness, and they shatter into so many pieces for mind control that your subconscious will take control of that shattered image, and that will hold it, and that can be programmed as an entity, as a character, and it'll have all its own attributes. You know, you've seen it where people have been programmed with alters, and with just a sentence can click that subconscious mind in, and all of a sudden it's relayed from who they were to a completely different personality in acting, dress sense, the lot. That's a very, very powerful thing when you have got control over somebody like that. You know, we've seen it with hypnotists. It's not a large percent of the population, is it, that is easily hypnotized? But they get people up and hypnotize people, and they can bite into a potato but taste an apple. You put that on steroids and on cocaine, and look at what the CIA have done. It's quite feasible, whether it's probable or not, that's all up for debate, but it's quite feasible that if you've got the ability to program minds like that, you put them in the places of power, what you want to control, hey presto. But they rely on a lot that nobody will believe that. That's too much for conspiracy theory. But, make the lie big. Make it as big as you can and keep repeating it.
Yeah, it's all about trauma-based mind control. Like you were saying, I mean, the CIA have got the MK Ultra program that used mind control. But if you think about it on a global scale, we're all under mind control.
To a certain extent, yeah.
Well, we are, aren't we? I mean, we see things on the news. We see things on the news, and it triggers things in us. See, the thing is with people like us, when we see on the news that there's been a terrorist attack somewhere, we instantly think, right, who's done this? I'm not buying what shit they're telling me. Let's have a look at if you're that way inclined. But that's what that will trigger in people like us. But in other people, it will trigger fear. And while people are in fear, like you say, they do, and this is a lot to do with the psychology what we were talking about earlier on with Tommy Robinson. People are in fear, and when people are in fear, what they do is they externalize the power. They externalize it to somebody else who they think is going to save them. Whether that's Tommy Robinson, whether that's Jeremy Corbyn, whether that's Theresa May, even, you're externalizing your power onto somebody else, and the mind control that is dished out by the news media and on social media as well. I mean, you do see a lot of crap on social media. You do see a lot of fake stories and stories that are there to trigger you. They will trigger you. You might not. You see a headline that says, I don't know, such and such bombed this or did that or whatever. It's in there. It's in your subconscious. And then if somebody else brings it up at another time, you'll say, I think I heard that. And then that's how things get rolled up into huge, big, massive things. But if you break it all down, everything, we're all under mind control to some degree. Because we've got to be. I'm going to be celebrating Christmas in 4 weeks' time, much against my will and against everything that I believe in, but I will be celebrating Christmas because I'm under a certain amount of mind control. You know, we all are. We're all under that certain amount of mind control, and if it's not your mind, if it's not somebody controlling your mind, it's a whole bunch of people, society, if you will, or, you know, that are controlling your mind, that is, you're then saying in your subconscious, look, if I'm going to look like a right dickhead, people are going to buy me presents, I'm going to buy them out back, and I'm just going like a right wanker and all this sort of shit. So you conform, and that's a form of mind control, because people are, you know, they don't want to. People are social animals, and they don't want to alienate themselves from their social groups, whether that's friends, family, or other things. So they will generally tend to conform to what the general consensus is. Now, the more that you can cut that out, and believe me, I've cut just about as much as that out as I can. You know, we'll be buying gifts for people at Christmas, and we'll be receiving gifts at Christmas, and but you know, nothing. It doesn't mean anything to me. I mean, the whole experience, the whole debacle, the whole well, they just, the pressure that it puts on people, that people put on themselves over it. It just. It boggles my mind, and so
it is when you put everything together, because everybody knows it's all about the money now. It's been about corporatization for a long time, but you know, people it doesn't seem to bother people that we spend all this money, we get ourselves into debt. I know people who will put loads of stuff on credit cards and then try and pay it off over the year to just make sure there's presents, but the factor is, it's a pagan holiday that we're told it's about baby Jesus. Now, there's something not right about all that. And again, it's like you've just been saying again, once upon a time, you wouldn't have even batted an eyelid. It's Christmas, you know, noddy all the time. That's what we've been thinking. But when you look into the history of it and you see what this is and how it's presented to you and pushed, then you can just see there's more to it. But there's a lot of people that are still well and truly plugged in. You were talking about the younger generation not being able to articulate a challenge. Well, that's what the police and councils and that's what they want. They want a people who can't articulate a challenge to their authority, and that will be right across the board. That, you know, you're talking not only 1984, but Brave New World type scenario. Hunger Games, perhaps, for entertainment for these people. Who knows where this stops? Because they've given us a lot of information of what they would like. It's all there. They don't hide anything from us. They can't. They tell us everything. They show us everything that they want to do. But people have got that part in the brain, that cognitive dissonance, that if that doesn't get broken, you only get so far and it reboots. Dave kept doing it last night with money. You know, he kept going back to, yeah, but you save some money. You can't save money, Dave. That's what I was trying to say to him. Whilst we keep talking about saving money in a debt-based economy, you can't fix it. Doesn't make sense.
Mm. Yeah. Interesting. It was an interesting exchange between you and Dave last night. I just think that perhaps the concepts that you were coming up with were just a little bit above his head, and I'm sure that Dave would also agree as well on that case, because he does he does have his shortcomings, does Dave? But we love him anyway. He's one of my favourite people, and he's my favourite right-wing person. That's coming from a lefty.
Can you see him all over? Can you see him from the far left?
Do you know what? You see, I can't. That's the problem. Is these days I can't even lean to the left.
Well, you fall over.
Last time I leaned to the left, my ribs got broken and everything. I'm not doing that again. Oh dear. Yeah, well, it's been a good week, mate. It's been a good week. We've had 2 good shows. Enjoyed tonight. How are you fixed for next week? Should we do this bit on air?
Yeah, everything's fine for next week. Have we got guests next week yet?
We haven't, but we will have. We'll definitely have guests.
Yeah, well, again, I've spoke to Eddie Alder from UK Column. He's passed on a message for Brian Gerrish to get me some dates. Brian Gerrish wants to, he wants to come on the show and answer some tough questions, which UK Column have took quite a bit of shit over the years as well. We're no stranger to having people on who took shit. Come on and tell your truth. That's what we said to everybody who's come on. This is your time to tell your truth. This is your platform. You and Andy gave me that platform to tell my truth, and that's what we give to other people. If you're not telling truth and you're trying to manipulate and tell lies, it'll come out. We don't need to tell people that this man or this woman's a liar. Give them the platform and let them tell people themselves. It's all going to come out. If you're false in doing what you're doing, it'll come out.
Yeah, of course it will. Well, listen, it's been brilliant, mate, having a chat with you. Just me and you. It's been a good show. We've had decent numbers as well watching. So
yeah, we have, yeah.
So, yeah. So, listen, everybody, thank you very much for watching. Thanks to everyone in the chat room. Thanks to Johnny Jamshovel. Thanks to Andy for getting me on this platform in the first place. I hope you're okay, mate, and give us a call at some point. Also, I'd like to say Owen Lloyd Martin as well. Get well soon, mate. He's had a bit of a fall as well. He's had some do with ribs. So I hope you're okay and get well soon. And thanks to everyone in the chat room. Have I thanked everybody? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I think I have. I think that's it.
John's show on tonight?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Whose show?
Joan got a show on at 9.
That's what I meant to say as well. Support independent media, support people. I don't know if Eric Cooking Munster is on tonight, but he was on last night. Go and watch his shows. Great shows. I had a bit of a listen today for a little while, and it's certainly worth listening to. And a lot of people that listen to us do go over there, so you'll be amongst friends as well. And Joan's show is on. It's probably on right about now on People's Internet Radio as well. So support independent media, support people like us. We just talk out our arses, but at least we're honest about talking out our arses. And just in recognition of Andy as well, thanks for listening, because if it wasn't for you, we'd just be talking to ourselves. Bye.